Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. This is Aurelia Davis, the educator's educator, coming to you a little later today on Monday, a rainy Monday in Chicago. And wanted to talk to you still about some things pertaining to education, which is what I do. But I hope everybody's doing well out there. I had the opportunity today to attend a principals meeting in a particular district. And just being able to, I was there with another group. We were going to make a presentation, but at the same time, just sort of listening in the background to some things that were going on. And I kept hearing the word attendance, attendance. And that brought back to mind with me how we were so adamant back in the day about getting children to school. And it was such a urgency that even back in like the 80s and the 90s, children were encouraged to come to school. Well, at that particular time, also the enactment of children being able to attend school in their neighborhoods was pretty much all you had. And but they found out later that children attending, going traveling on a bus to a school, they had to sort of become a little bit more flexible. Child could miss the bus or so on and so forth. All kinds of things would happen. But it was very important for children to get to school because, first of all, the academics, it proved, it helped them academically. And even at one time, there we invested money. Districts invested money in truant officers. Truant officers. A truant officer was a person that will come to your house if you were had missed so many days of school. And then all of a sudden they stopped. They stopped. I don't know if it was privacy. I don't know what it was, but basically, when truant officers were in place and hired and worked throughout the United States. I know they worked in the city of Chicago. Children showed up to school. Children were in school every day. Every day they were coming to school. Every day they were coming to school. And so it was more of a discipline that the family had to take on as a job that they had to prepare their children to come to school every day, Monday through Friday, from whatever time to whatever time the child was expected to be in the classroom. Well, after truant officers no longer existed and those particular roles were taken out of the system, there was like a band aid, something, job in place where people would call children, or either children, parents would call and say, my child's not going to be in school today. And of course, the attendance of being a classroom teacher is something that is taken every day. I remember taking attendance every day, taking attendance and counting lunch money. Hello. And that's what I did. That was part of my job because those attendance records were still very, 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 very important to the administrators, to the school district, to the city, to the state. It was very, very, very important. Well, I just went in and looked up a few things about attendancing, children's attending school, and how it affects both funding and learning, how it affects both funding and learning. Of course, with the child, it affects their academic learning. But with school districts and schools and states, it affects funding because they depend on so much money per child. And that's how these schools get what they get. Now, in the meantime, there's so many school days in a year. They expect a child to show up X number of school days. I'm going to be honest. They're not really saying that they're going to show up every day because children get sick and different things happen. It's where children cannot come to school on a regular basis. But the majority of the time, those children are expected to be in school. Well, the first thing I want to bring up is about how school affects a child's academic progress. A missed school day is a lost opportunity for students to learn. In this era of increased accountability for states, districts, and schools, the connection between student attendance and learning is being studied more than ever. Uh, as a result, agencies are asking with increasing frequency to report attendance data in a standard manner to allow comparisons across organizations and jurisdictions. So they're saying that as we go along and children are still attending school, they're still trying to delve into how much it does affect a particular child who is not, who cannot make the grade of as far as passing tests and so on and so forth. And so they're even studying through agencies and things now. Well, a lot of things have, as far as reasons why a child is not attending school these days. First of all, we have to look at the pandemic. There was basically some type of record being taken for children to attend school online, but it was never ever accurate. And educators would tell you now, and principals will tell you now that those particular records are really not, they're not to be believed on, because they don't know. You call up a child's house and ask the mother, is Johnny there and is he attending school? Yes. Well, if you can't see the child, then you don't know if the parent is saying it just to say it or if the child is actually there. So they're not depending on a lot of the records that were turned in during the pandemic as far as children, as far as attendance is concerned. But what they are doing is that from this particular point on, because the children will be going back to school in August or September, or some of them are in school now. And because things are in place, there's really no reason why a child should not be attending class on a regular basis. This is what's being said from state to state. As far as also stating and connecting academics with student attendance, the primary rationale for high quality attendance data is the relationship between student attendance and student achievement, teacher effectiveness, and the strongest school-related detriment of student success. But chronic student absences reduce even the best teacher's ability to provide learning opportunities. So they're saying if your child is not there, the child cannot learn. It's as simple as that. If the child is not in school, the child cannot learn. And then if the child comes back to school, the teacher is responsible for playing catch up, which is really not fair to the parent, to the teacher, or the parent, or the child. And no one wins in this situation. I do know, and I don't know if this particular program still is in place, but when we had children that were chronically ill, I had one of my girlfriend's daughters was chronically ill, and what the school district would provide is a homeschool teacher, or a homeschool tutor. I did it myself. And what we were responsible for doing is first visiting the classroom where the child, or the school where the child attended school. We had a session with the teacher. And then we would receive any and all materials that child needed to do, in order to keep up with the class and what was going on with the classroom. Well, that was before a lot of the streaming and being able to go online and whatever like that. So I'm understanding that the particular individuals may no longer be in place in some situations, but now a child can attend. If the child has a chronic illness, a child can attend school online like they did during the pandemic. A child can actually attend school online and sit in the classroom through streaming, through a laptop, so that the teacher can give them direct instruction. And it would be, to the point where the child can participate in whatever's going on. The problem of children being chronically ill is something that we can't do anything about. And because a child is chronically ill, it does not necessarily mean that they do not want to be in school. So we as a district, or as educators, or as a school, we have to make sure that child is receiving any and everything they need in order for them to be successful in a school. So the other thing that I tapped into was a article from the State Board of Education for Illinois, and they brought up what was called, oh my goodness, what was it called? It's called evidence-based funding. Okay, I'll say it again. Evidence-based funding. And evidence-based funding was enacted in 2017 to assist the state's most under-resourced students. According to the State Board of Education, it is designed to ensure all schools provide quality educational based on equity, adequacy, and student outcomes. I'll say that again. They basically are saying to ensure all schools provide quality education based on equity, adequacy, and student outcomes. So they're saying that this particular evidence base, and then I did a little bit more investigating, and I found out that in the 1990s, when school finance adequacy began to dominate discussions about school funding, the idea seemed promising. This straightforward idea called for states as they begin to develop curriculum, content, and student performance standards to identify the financial resources needed for students to meet those standards. In other words, how much does it cost for a third grader to learn everything he needs to learn in third grade? How much would it cost for that whole year for that child to get what he needs in order to learn for third grade? And one approach for estimating those resources were the evidence-based method developed by Alan Oden and Lawrence O. Pikus. The evidence-based method had two steps: a review of the evidence from research and best practice on what programs worked in education, and a study of schools and districts that have dramatically increased the level of student performance over a 3 to 7 year time period. So I'm understanding this, that regardless to attendance, what they're basically saying is that if a child cannot come to school, that does not mean that particular child's funding should be deleted or taken away. But that funding should still be in place in order for that child to get anything and everything they need in order for them to be able to be successful in a classroom or to be successful at home. And so in other words, if Johnny has $300,000 for him to be in, from September to June, for him to be able to learn everything he needs to learn, then that money should be funded to him no matter what, whether he attends school or not. Because sometimes the attendance is also to the point where if children are attending class and they're still not getting the material, then what are you saying about attendance? I've had that happen. I've had children that showed up every day. And for some reason, and then of course I would take it to the level where I would have them analyzed or tested to see if there were some other deficits in place where they could not learn. But what evidence-based instruction means, that basically evidence-based method means that that child deserves to get the full amount of his money in order for him to learn. So that means you take that child's funds, and if you have to deal with some tutors or extra, I'm just making a broad statement here. Of course, the child doesn't have the money sitting on the desk. But at the same time, if that's what it takes, if that child is deemed that amount of money for him to be in third grade, then that money should not be taken away from him because he is not in attendance at that building. That's what they're basically saying. So in some state boards, they have decided that because during the pandemic, of course, nobody was guaranteed bodies in seats. Nobody was guaranteed children sitting in front of them or children being online. None of that was guaranteed because of the situation that the whole country was in under the pandemic. So because the attendance could not be measured, then the states are pushing back on what they would have possibly did if the attendance was being measured. So they're saying that you're not going to be punished because you could not because you did not have X number of children in front of you or in your classroom, and so on and so forth. So this goes on, and I'm sure that eventually what's going to happen is they are probably going to get back into counting attendance heavily, because the funding also, comes from the top. What they are doing is more funding is being placed in our preschools, and my interest in that is that that's good, because early learning is very important to children. Early learning is very important to children, and they're finding more now that it is important for a 3 and 4 year old or a 4 and 5 year old to be in a classroom in front of some kind of instruction as early as possible. That's why it was called early childhood, and that's why it was called early learning. And more states are putting money into these particular programs, into preschool programs, into daycare programs, where people can take their children to a daycare center and the child can get educational instruction, or take them to a preschool. And of course, we have so many different names under the umbrella of early learning that we need to take advantage of it, because it's becoming more and more popular, and they are sinking more and more money into this. So as teachers, as you're going back to your buildings in the next couple of days or next couple of weeks, be very cognizant, be very aware. I've been out too much. Be very aware of how many your children coming to class every day. It is very important. And if you start to notice that they're being absent, well, of course, most schools do have a policy. If your child is out for so many days, or if they are out for one day, they have to come back with a note. There has to be a note, and it has to be a note that has been looked at and valued, that this was reason enough for a child to be absent. But then when you're dealing with the more poverty areas of a city, where they didn't have clean clothes, or nobody woke them up on time, or they didn't have lunch money, or nobody could get them there, then you have to be flexible enough to understand how those things happen also. And those are some reasons to keep a child may not be attending school. And I would say that if I was in that situation, I would reach out to that parent and find out exactly what type of resources could be available to help that parent do better as far as having that child attend school. Because a child not being in school, when a child is not in school, a child can't learn. When a child is not in school, a child cannot learn. And we want them to get as much learning. They need to be there all day long, some of them, but we're not going to go there. So this is Aurelia Davis, the educator's educator. I'd love to know your thoughts about this. What kind of situations have you had with children being absent in your classroom? What's the policy for your school when a child is absent so many days, or so on and so forth? I've known, just going back a little bit, usually in some schools, if a child was absent so many days, then of course there would be a report that would go out, and they would send somebody out to the home. So the truant officers were not working every day, but basically that attendance officer, which is what they're called now, usually will go out to that particular home to find out exactly why that child is not attending school. So leave me a comment below. You can also head over to AureliaDavis.com and learn more about the things that I do, and the things I like to work on, and things I like to talk about as far as education is concerned, and you as an educator. All right, this is Aurelia Davis. Take care, and let's talk to you soon. Bye-bye.